If all gays were allowed to marriage, why the world would be a perfect place. So they say nothing when gays are thrown off the roofs in Iraq. They don't even know what's going on. They don't talk about it. They say nothing when young girls are raped by ISIS. But if anyone says anything about it, they say you're anti-Muslim or you're Islamophobic, because that's how these mindless children have been raised. And so what's going to come next? You tell me what's going to become next is the issue. KWQW. Ron, welcome to the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir, Dr. Savage. I think it's the hippie generation, which you have mentioned before, which is the cause for the millennial generation, because they are looking for excuses for themselves for being failures. And their failures have to be subsidized by the kids who are brought up by them. So therefore, they don't really want to admit failure because of their kids being failures, because it makes them look failures.
Have you ever seen the mobs in the streets of Ferguson or Baltimore, in addition to the black thugs? Did you see who was marching and pushing behind them? It was the millennials. Now, the same millennials who are now deriding themselves, deriding the fact that there are no longer police to protect them, they're the ones who drove the police out of these cities. Do they have any idea that there are consequences to their behavior? No, because there's never been a consequence to any of their behavior. They were indulged by their hippie parents.
Yes, sir, that's exactly right, and it's because of the way they were brought up. And if they don't have to respond or have excuses or prove themselves to their parents, how are they going to do it in public to police forces or the public in general? It's impossible.
So they've been raised by the ACLU, by the radical left, to hate police, to love immigrants, to hate Christians, to despise religion, to assume that anyone who's religious is a bigot. Is that not the mentality of the millennial?
That's exactly right. And as much as I don't want to defend them, they were kind of indoctrinated because they have been indoctrinated. They are the Khmer Rouge of our time. They are the soulless monsters who are definitely not on the side of the good guys. They're on no side whatsoever. They don't know what to think. Correct, sir, and they won't know what to think in the future either, as long as they're being, pretty much facilitated by the liberal media, which endorses and indoctrinates them even further. Any channel,
right? As long as they have sunglasses and a yoga mat, they think the world is a perfect place.
Exactly right, among other things, which includes drugs and homosexuality behavior, such as this Jenner character, and everything that's supposed to be acceptable and appreciated and approved, when it's really not. But the liberal media imposes that it should. Therefore, we all have to accept it because they have the majority of the listeners, if you will.
Well, that's how a man like Obama gets away with lying, because if you say anything about his lies, they call you a racist. They have been indoctrinated to believe that anyone who criticizes a person of color is by definition a bigot. Even if you're right, you're wrong. This is the problem we're having right now. I think that I have focused on this for one reason, is that one of the reasons we're having so much trouble in America is because we have an entire generation of mindless, soulless robots who have no idea about the bigger world. It's only the yoga mat. It's only what they're putting in their mouth and their yoga mat that matters. Thank you for the call, but hold it. Let me send you a gift called Countdown to Mecca, a book that no millennial would ever be seen with. 855-400-7282 is the phone number. WVNN Radio. Lisa, go ahead, please, on the millennial issue. What's on your mind?
Yes, I just want to say, as the mother of two millennials, it's been very hard to raise them. We weren't ever allowed to spank them because they would be turning us into the social services while they were at school. We could never really say, wait till your dad gets home, because if dad got home and spanked them, they were going to turn them into social services. We've never known our neighbors well enough, or not never. We were a military family, so we have known neighbors. But as a kid, there was always that fear that the neighbor would find out what you did and tell your parents, and your parents would get in trouble. But we've never been allowed to do that with our kids. We've never been allowed to spank them. That's wrong. We're supposed to put them in timeout. We've never been allowed to do anything as far as their schoolwork goes. They were taught new math. They were taught new reading where phonics wasn't offered anymore. They were taught all kinds of things about the environment and whatnot that came across as cute little teddy bear stories, but they were really politically motivated. They've taken away recess They put 120 kids in a 60-minute PE class, so the kids are getting no exercise, no chance to blow off steam, and we're not allowed to spank them or reprimand them in any way, or else we're going to be in big trouble. And so about the only thing left for us to do was to try to medicate the ones, because society wasn't letting us try to control them in ways that generations upon generations upon generations have dealt with squirrely.
And yet large corporations from McDonald's to General Motors are trying to think about how to appeal to this youth audience, when this youth audience is not even driving cars to the extent that they used to drive cars, by the way. There's no connection between them and cars. Did you know that as well?
My nephew recently was traveling across country for the purpose of delivering the car back to his dad because he said he no longer needs it. Meanwhile,
right. In other words, it's dirty to drive a car. He likes to ride a bicycle like a coolie did in China. Next to me pushing a rickshaw and think it's very fashionable.
Right, but my daughter...
You wake up and the millennials will be pulling rickshaws around the city with visitors from China thinking that they're very hip. That'll be the future of America. Little millennials running with a rickshaw behind them with Chinese visitors sitting in the seat, taking pictures of nothing.
Chinese food they've ever had in their whole lives on top of it. Hey.
Well, you could see where I'm coming from, because what I'm saying is very important in some ways. In others, we have social ills. We know that. We always have and we always will. But from a distance, looking in at this revolutionary change in demographics in America, and now we have to ask ourselves, who are these people? Are they like us? Are they different from us? Well, they're like us and they have 2 eyes, a nose, 2 legs, and 2 arms in general. They have hair, and they can breathe and they can think. But they're more like robots than they are like people with souls, in my opinion. They were raised, and I'll stick to the words, on medication and Microsoft. They have no social conscience whatsoever except for global warming and gay marriage. Am I wrong about that?
It's completely wrong, no, because I will say that my daughters are active in doing charitable things and members of organizations that...
Yeah, but you're the mother. You're the mother of your daughters. You're obviously a social conservative, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know you're almost afraid to say it, but most of the millennials were raised by social uber liberals, and the children are worse than them.
That we have in America is that we have a lot of Christian parents who are raising really great citizens.
Yes, that's right. And the millennials probably look upon you as a bunch of Nazis.
Right. Well, they think that, some of these millennials are very good citizens, but they're not Christians. They're not doing it for the right reason. They're not.
And they're good citizens with regard to what? Hating the police and supporting immigrants. No matter what the immigrant does, the immigrant is good. And anyone who opposes immigrants is bad. That's their mindset. I know the mindset. I can read it better than anybody. One thing I am really expert at is reading the tea leaves. I have the greatest stethoscope in social science. And I am telling you that these millennials, this millennial generation, is so dangerous people cannot even understand what's coming at them. They have no idea what's coming at them. I do. I've seen it before. I've read history. Only this generation is even worse. Because if you take a soulless, mindless generation and you add to it drugs and iPhones, no knowledge, just facts. No knowledge, just information. No wisdom, only facts. That's not a generation that I have much faith in. That's the generation that loves Barack Obama. I'm going to send you a wonderful novel that the millennials would never touch called Countdown to Mecca. In fact, they probably have to go to a shrink if they ever saw you bring it home, because it tells the truth about what's coming in this country in many different ways. Oh, do I have good callers on this? Oh, do I have good callers on this? Oh, did I step into a bear trap? Terry on WJR, go ahead, please.
Michael, I'm calling because I am a nanny, and I take care of children. I've been in many households, and you're talking about the millennials and the kids holding devices. Well, that's what's raising them. It seems they're getting their morals and their folklore from the games that they're playing.
So what are the morals of the millennials? Are there any?
Yeah. Give me what I want now. That's it.
Okay, so it's little nasty children in adult bodies.
Not what I need. They're
little nasty children in grown-up bodies.
Yes, demanding constantly. And if they don't get what they want, they scream until Mommy and Daddy gives it to them. And, Michael, I'm all about nutrition. I'm all about herbs. I'm 63 going on 64. I don't take any medication whatsoever. I do herbs. I still got all my teeth. My hair's down to my waist, and it's still brown. And you are in my household, that's what we do. We use good nutrition. We keep the sugar away from the kids.
Okay, but hold on. But the millennials were raised on junk, weren't they?
Yes. And they,
yeah, I've watched it. I've seen it for 20 years. The mothers who look good-looking, many of them, dressed well, I've seen them rush into Starbucks with their child in their hand. I've seen them buy them a piece of cake and give them cocoa in the morning. And I want to scream, lady, you're killing your child. I don't say not a one word, because as sure as I was sitting there, that child was also on a psychoactive drug, which was deadening them.
Agreed. Ritalin they tried to have my son take Ritalin, and we wouldn't give it to him. And that was because they wanted to have all the boys in the classroom on Ritalin. And
that's right. They wanted the boys to be let's use a word for it, emasculated, chemically emasculated. The feminists destroyed education in America, and they wanted to chemically emasculate all the boys. They're doing it to our men in the military right now. They're chemically emasculating our troops. They're doping them to death.
And I homeschooled him. And I have 10 acres in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. So part of our program was going out on the land that was blank land and turning it into a farm. We now have an herb farm up there. We grow reishi mushrooms for cancer and that sort of thing. My son is now like 35, and that's his love.
Can you imagine what's going to happen in this country if, in fact, the economy does take a downturn, if a foreign country does pull our debt and does break the dollar? What would happen in this country with children who cannot drive a nail, turn a screw, or grow a vegetable? Tell me what would happen to this nation.
So button on a shirt, wash their own.
You know, it's an interesting conversation. When I went to high school, I remember I had to take, even though I was in the academic track, I had to take shop class. I had to learn how to wire things. I had to learn how to fix things. Do you know that they even had me in millinery class? Would you believe that? I was embarrassed to say. I thought it was sissified. I had to learn how to sew, and they said, no, it's not sissified to learn how to sew something that rips. Can you imagine that? But I also had a rifle team in the basement of my high school. I also learned how to shoot a rifle in the basement, and I was on the rifle team, and guess what? No one shot themselves, and no one ran through the hall with the rifle shooting anybody else. I'm sending you a copy of my novel, Countdown to Mecca. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Your Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust for tangible assets, gold and silver. Call 800-BUI-COIN. Welcome back to the Savage Nation. Look, many of you think I'm bashing the millennials just for fun and effect. You're wrong. It's terrifying to think what's coming. That's a generation of about 80 million people. And marketing executives are obsessed with satisfying this audience, this demographic. Well, if it's all about money, that's one thing. Everybody needs to make a living. Everybody needs to sell ads. Everybody needs to have their programs listened to. But I'm not going to sit and cater to a mindless, soulless generation. And I'm talking in generalities. Here I get an email that says that Seinfeld agrees with you. Even liberal Seinfeld stopped playing colleges because he says those kids have no clue. He says they use words like racist, sexist, and bigot, and have no clue what the words mean. That's Seinfeld, the man who created liberalism on television. Even he has now become burned by his own tongue. And so what I'm saying to you is be very cautious here in catering to this, in stampeding along and catering to this generation. And we're going to talk more about it as time goes on. Who are the millennials? Why, they're the ones who, when they dine out, for example, they don't go out for food. They want an exotic adventure. And so they'd rather go food truck following rather than to a restaurant. They think they're exploring the world by dining at a Peruvian truck. That's the generation that's going to defend you from ISIS when they come to cut your throat.